Welcome back, everybody, to a special edition of In the Hot Seat here with Rob Tiongson, the Podium Finishes editor-in-chief and NMPA journalist. And on today's edition of In the Hot Seat, we have a really special guest. We're not going to the stock car scene. We're going to go a little bit into the dirty side of things with motorsports, with dirt track racing and off-road racing with 18-year-old race car driver Gray Leadbetter. And I'm so excited to have Gray here because she's literally back from Phoenix, and not at the racetrack in Phoenix, but in the great outdoors of Phoenix. So, Gray, before we get started, you had a great weekend at Phoenix. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I got back last night. I don't think I got back to my house till about 9 o'clock. So it was a long day of travel yesterday, and then the weekend went great.
Oh, wow, that's crazy. I'm sure you're a little tired, though.
Not too bad.
Only to be so young. If you were my age, you'd be like, why this early? But it's so awesome. I read about your background, of course. I've seen your social media, and that's why we have you here on the hot seat. So, for folks at home who are going to be listening in or reading this on our website, obviously these are NASCAR fans who are just learning about you for the first time. What are some of your earliest memories about racing that inspired you to go after this career?
I'm not sure. I've been doing it for so long. It just kind of nobody in my family's raced, so I have no history or no background in it. I just kind of wanted the little cars you get at Walmart, and my parents said no when I was 2 years old because we have a gravel driveway and they just didn't want to listen to it. And so instead they got me like this electric four-wheeler. And I started riding that when I was two, and then our friends rode dirt bikes. They're like, okay, put her on a dirt bike when she turns three with training wheels. And then I got off training wheels and I started racing when I was four. And then it's kind of just carried on from there. I still love dirt bikes. I'm slowly getting back into it, not racing, not really riding any big bikes, but back into the world of pit bikes, which is making me feel good because it's like bringing me back to my childhood.
That's awesome. I can't imagine being like 2 or 3 years old and, being able to do that. I guess it was something that came naturally to you, and you're like, in your own little way, saying to your parents, you're like, guys, I want to do this.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't remember it. I was so young. I just know that I got the passion for it when I was that age, and then it just kept continuing up through dirt bikes, go-karts, mini outlaws, whatever else I've ran. There's been so many things.
That's amazing. I mean, great. I can't even recall when I was 2 or 3 years old what I wanted to do, and much less still pursuing it. Because a lot of kids say, "Oh, I want to be a bus driver or a doctor," and here you are. You're fulfilling something that you may not remember exactly what you said, but you're doing that. Is it something that's been within you, in your body, in your blood, saying, you know what, I want to be a race car driver?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just when I was like younger, my parents were like, "You can go if you don't want to go to the racetrack day, you can go to your friend's birthday party, or go stay at their house, or do this, or we could go on vacation." And it's just like, no, I'd rather be at the racetrack. Like I gave up everything as a child to go do that. Like I had friends still, but like that was just like, I'll see you at school. Maybe come over when I'm not at the racetrack. But now it's just, I mean, it's still the same way today.
I mean, and how many kids can say, or teenagers now can say, "Hey, I'm going to race against Travis Pastrana and Leo Block." Like, does
For
that
sure.
sometimes make you go, "Holy moly, I'm doing this"?
Yeah, absolutely. Travis was an idol to me growing up and still is. And now I get to see and now I get to race against him, which is surreal, honestly. And we're doing things with him and it just doesn't feel real. And it is, and it's been real for the past like 6 months or so. But I looked up to him so much as a kid just because everything that he got in, everything that he took place in, he did so well and advanced in that aspect and just has forever made, every child's dream of watching and looking up to him.
I was going to say, when I read about you, Gray, I feel like you're very comparable to what Travis does because you've raced about anything, which I was so impressed with. Because, if you're a stock car driver that's young, you basically have done like late models, bandoleros, legend cars, and all that. You, meanwhile, like you said, you did motocross for a while. And I don't know, I'm not a parent yet, but I would have a hard time saying, yeah, great, go ahead and race a motocross bike. But how was that like for you, from what you could remember?
It was I never had fear really on a dirt bike. I don't know what it was. I think I have more fear now in things now just because know I can comprehend the consequences of it. But I don't know, it was just something that like we had a dirt bike track in my backyard. So I would come home from school, jump on my bike, and then ride till it got dark, which was only like 2 hours because it would be winter. But my dad would like yell at me to get off my dirt bike. He's like, "It's too dark. You can't ride anymore." And I'm like, "But I can still see. I can see enough." And it was just like I don't know, the passions just never really went away. And I eventually grew out of dirt bikes just because, long story short, it's very difficult to make it anywhere on a dirt bike as a female, just because it is very physically demanding. And that is one thing that sucks about it. But in other terms, it's got me into four wheels and got me where I am today.
So it's kind of like a northern star for you in a way.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And I did read somewhere that at age 7, you had a bit of a difficult situation that you had to overcome. And you talked about how you've been going back on a dirt bike and you kind of understand the fear of it. But when you were 7 and you got hurt, were you like kind of going like, oh no, I may not be able to do this anymore? Or were you thinking, Gray, I'm gonna be okay. I just have to get over this.
I remember because it was a really kind of odd crash, but I didn't get off the starting line, and then I got pissed at myself because I was so far ahead of the people in front of me who I was racing against, and got cross-drived and went into a dirt burn. It's whatever. And I just remember crashing, and then I remember my dad running up towards me, and came and asked me if I was okay, and I was just like, I can't ride. I was like, I'm hurt, and he was like, okay, so she actually is hurt because she normally would crash and just be fine and want to get back up immediately, and I didn't. So he was like, okay, yeah, she's actually hurt. And then we went to the hospital. We did all the stuff, whatever. And I remember all I wanted to do was get back on the bike. But my biggest thing was like wanting to ride my like razor scooter around the house. And I was like, how long till I can do that? And it was probably like 2 weeks until I was back doing that. And then it was like, okay, when can I get on the trampoline? And it was like, okay, now can I get back on a dirt bike? So it
You,
was just like, even after breaking my shoulder, I don't think any fear was in me after the fact. And if it was, I don't remember.
that's amazing because I know if I was a little kid, I would have been crying and then my parents would have yanked me out. But I think it was built within you to be like, it's a setback, but I'm ready to go back at it. And your parents are like, fine, Gray, go ahead and do it. You
Yeah.
know, that's just amazing. And I think that kind of gave you the bravery that you have to have as a race car driver. I know it's kind of like a very basic question to get into before we get back to talking more about you, but a lot of race car drivers will often say, well, I don't have a fear of racing or the dangers of it. But in your perspective, is it good to have a little bit of a healthy dose of fear?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think everybody needs it, or you just over push the limit to the extent of crashing every time. And you need to find your own limit, and that comes with fear also. But the best, I mean, I think everybody has fear, even stunt performers, I think, have fear. It's just the fact of being able to not necessarily block it out, but know that this is the consequence, but this is also what I love, and this is what I have to do, and I have to take the consequences out of the equation. Is kind of the biggest thing. Is just pushing past that to get to do what you love.
Exactly. Because I mean, everything in life has a risk. I mean, the moment you get out of your bed, anything could happen, right?
And something can happen with just walking on the street or walking down the
Exactly.
stairs.
I would hate to think about that thought next time I go downstairs from my room. That's going to be funny. I'll just blame you for that. I'm kidding.
That's fine.
Now, you were talking about how Travis was one of your heroes, and I've always asked this to any kind of driver, but who were some of the drivers that you looked up to that made you realize, yeah, I want to do this?
I think Travis was by far the biggest. Think I've talked about him forever. As long as I can remember, I did something of him when I was in second grade. It was like this poster thing, and we had to pretend we were this person and make a speech. And I actually had picked him. Um, but I think it was him. And then when I was growing up on dirt bikes, it was always Ashley Filick, just because she does so much. And on top of it, she's deaf, which just is mind boggling to me because I don't know how you can. I mean, it's just all about feel, but it's just crazy to me.
It's like these are like magicians at work, but then when you get to meet them in person, it makes you realize they're just as human as any of us. And I'm sure,
Absolutely.
like when you've met at least Travis, I've met him before when he raced in NASCAR, and he's just so electric. But like you almost think it's an act, but when you meet him in person, he's just generally an energy drink in person.
Yes, he's like one of the nicest people and most genuine people I know, and he does so many crazy things. So it's so nice to just see that and see like the calmness and the homeness that he has.
I agree. And I just want to have his enthusiasm as well, because he's like in his late 40s and he's acting like he's still a teenager. And I'm like, give me some of your secret mojo, because I would love that as a writer. So
For sure.
that'd be cool. Now, one of your most pivotal years, actually, Gray, was just a couple years ago in 2019, because not only were you doing some off-road racing, but you did some cross competition. So what was it like to compete in those different kinds of cars and get acclimated to these different kinds of tracks?
Yeah, for sure. I went to X Games in 2015 when they ran when they ran Rallycross in X Games. And I was like, from that point, which I was 9 years old, I was like, I want to do that. Like I told myself and I told my dad, I was like, I want to do that in the future. And then I ended up getting with we went to a race and I made connections like a year later, I think, 2 years later. And started talking to people and this and that. And then I ended up getting with Johnny and CJ Greaves in the off road short course stuff. And they're still to this day family to me. They have such a big name, but they're just normal people that live life every day like everybody else. Um, and I got with them in 2018, went into 2019, and that was one of the biggest years. And then I got an opportunity to go race ARX with Rallycross in the lights car, and it was so much fun. It was like it's still to this day, even though I'm back into Rallycross, it still to this day doesn't feel like it actually happened because it was such a dream, and then it became a reality, and I just still don't think I've processed it. um, but the lights cars were so much fun to drive, and it's crazy to be back around them even though I'm not necessarily in one, getting to watch them and be around them and watch, everything going on, and watching Leah race them is so much fun.
I can just imagine, because like the way you're describing it, it's almost like living in a dream and you want someone to not to pinch you, because if you do, then you're back to where you didn't want to be. You want to be living the dream, right?
Yeah, I guess that's one way to put it.
I think it's so cool. And, the thing that I really admire about you, Gray, is that you're just willing to do anything, because not a couple of years ago, I think you raced at what, 410 wing sprints and the World of Outlaws and the All-Star Circuit, which was going to be the High Limit Racing Series next year. I mean, when you did these previous racing series in motocross and rallycross and all of that, how did they help you with the dirt track stuff?
Everything works together. One of the biggest people in my life was Patrick Sandell and still is. I met him in a few years ago. I know we went to Sweden in 2017 to go drive a lights car on ice, which again does not feel like it happened. Um, but he was like, the biggest thing is drive anything that you can drive. And it's not necessary, which there's nothing wrong with it, but it's not necessarily the NASCAR route of going go-karts and then late models and ARCA and then so up. It was like, if you have the opportunity to drive something, drive it. So I went and I rode dirt bikes, and then I went into go-karts, and then I drove legend cars, and I've driven many outlaws, and I have driven a late model, and I've driven an ARCA car, and I've driven side by sides and rally cars and this and that. And then I had the opportunity to drive sprint cars, and it was like I have a picture of myself standing next to a wing of one when I was 12 years old, 11 years old, and I didn't even know what they were at the time. And I don't think I did for another few years after that. But I have a picture of myself, and little did I know that however many years later I'd be racing one. Nonetheless, World of Outlaws World Finals being my second race ever in a 410, which was insane.
I can imagine it's like being thrusted from middle school and here you are in grad school all of a sudden, right? You're like, hello, here I am.
Yeah, for sure.
Now let's talk about more of your recent efforts. I kind of led into it about you racing at Phoenix in early November when this interview airs, and you raced at Phoenix for rounds 4 and 5 of the SXX. Let me start over. SXS series. That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
I'll get used to that. But what did it mean for you to get a great finish? You got a podium on Saturday and you got a fourth the next day. I mean, how awesome was that for you?
Yeah, it felt really good to get it. I have been working towards it all season, of that, and I've been finishing right off the box every single time. And it's been very tough, and just trying to like mentally be like, okay, now I just got to push forward the next race and then push forward the next race. But everybody that I race against in that class is incredible. And we have so much fun in the pits nonetheless. Like at Utah, we would go race, come off the track, everybody would be super competitive on the track. We all race each other clean, but we're all really like nice to each other in a way because we don't want to wreck each other. Because if we wreck, there's only so many guys that fix the cars because it's spec series. And then if somebody crashes somebody and they can't race, then that's one person out of the class. And that's not what we want. So everybody goes out, we race each other hard but super clean. And then we come back in and we will have gel blaster fights. And gel blaster will be hitting each other with gel blasters for like 20 minutes after we get off the track, and we're all laughing and just running around the cars in between, and the fans are looking at us like we're crazy. But I mean, in reality, most of us are still kids that race that class, and we just all have fun and have such a blast with each other.
I love that because like when I saw clips of what you guys do, it's like you guys are like family members and you guys care. So it's pretty authentic from what I observed, right?
Yeah, for sure. There's nothing else. I don't think I've ever really raced anything like it. And it's not like the lights cars or the e-cars. Those are incredible to watch, but everybody's on their own team, everybody's separated, which is how most racing is. So then to come into the side-by-side class and everybody be connected, everybody be under one tent, and nobody ever gets mad at each other, nobody ever has anything against each other. We all hang out, we all talk to each other, we all help each other too. And so it's just such a tight niche sport, and it's such a tight group of guys that help there, and it's so much fun.
That's what I love because I watched some clips from like the last couple of years, and I just think like, in NASCAR, when something happens with hard racing, people complain, but then you guys are just like having a good time, sometimes apologizing, and I was like, wow, this is such class. Where can we find this kind of stuff elsewhere? And I'm like, oh, Nitrocross has it, you know?
For
So it's so
sure.
cool. It's really cool. And obviously I've never driven a car. I just drove a Tesla Model S at Coda, which is not exciting, but for me it was. For anybody like me who's never been in a Nitrocross car, what's the most comparable experience to being in that vehicle?
Gosh, I have no idea. I think in the side by side, it would be driving a side by side simply. Anybody, because it's essentially driving a Can-Am is you can go buy one off the shelf and then take it to the woods trail, or take it on the road if you make it street legal like we can in North Carolina. And that is what we race. There's really not much difference to it. We put a roll cage in it, of course, and seatbelts and race seats, but in all reality, it's just a car that somebody else can go buy, which is insane. But that's what makes the class so unique. And then for the lights cars and things like that, I'm not sure there's anything that can compare to it. I think the closest thing to driving a e-car would just be an electric car, because those cars are so fast, it's insane.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, when people think about a car, you're just thinking, oh, carbon neutral and friendly to the environment. And you're like, when you put your foot in the gas pedal, you're like, no,
Yeah.
this baby can go quick. So I'm like, I have a lot more respect for sure. Oh, goodness gracious. I got a couple more questions before I wrap things up with you, Gray, and I'm having a lot of fun with you and hope you are as well. Now, obviously, this sounds like a job interview question. I hate asking these, but I have to anyways. Ideally, what's the happy path for you with your career if everything works out for you in the long run with motorsports?
Anything that I can drive. That is what I've always said, and I think that's like people ask me what's the most fun thing you've ever driven, and I just say whatever I drove last, whether it's a sprint car, whether it's a side by side, whether it's a mini, whether it's a late model, I don't anything for that matter. If I drove it last, and that's the last thing I have my mind set to, then that's the most fun thing I've driven until I go get into something else. And it's just I have so much fun with any aspect of any of it, that if an opportunity were to arise, I would take it. And whether it be asphalt or dirt or whatever it might be, road course, circle track, anything. I've always had the passion to go fast and be in a race car.
You're very old school for a young driver. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking AJ Foyt or Mario Andretti, like, or Tony Stewart even, and I'm like, you know what? This is exciting. I love this. So you literally could probably go Texas Motor Speedway Racing, and you'd be like, I'll do a truck race. I'll be
Any
cool.
of it, put me in something and I'll drive it.
You go NASCAR owners, get Gray Leadbetter in the car for sure. Now, for my last question for you, based on your answers, I feel like this is going to be a really unpredictable answer here. If you had the opportunity to build a racetrack anywhere around the world, what kind of track would you build and where would it be?
Ah, I only say this because I know that there actually is a place that could do it. There's a there's like 300 acres right off the highway in Morganton where I live. And it's like when I say right off the highway, I mean you drive past it and you can see it. And it'd be a dream to put like an off-road track there because it's actually in like a pretty good area because we're only an hour and a half from Charlotte and it's North Carolina, which is head of NASCAR, but it's still motorsports in general. But that would be incredible. Other than that, I'm not sure. I haven't put too much thought in about it.
But I like your idea anyway, because it sounds very unique and not your typical cookie cutter answer. So on point for you for sure. And is there anything you want to say to the fans, your fans, or anybody who's learning about you for the first time that's going to listen to this interview or read it?
I don't think so. I think just whoever wants to get into motorsports, if there's anybody out there, just put your mind to it. If you're younger, go to a go-kart track, go to a dirt track, get in a there's dirt flat karts too. I mean anything. We're going to drive minivans next week or this week. We're going to race minivans. So you really can race anything for that matter. And just as long as you put your heart to it and you keep your mind set to it, you can pretty much do anything.
Minivan racing. What will they think of next? Wow, that's my aunt would be happy about that. So I should
Yeah,
tell
I'm
her
not
about
sure.
this.
I just got a text message that said, "Hey, be ready to go to Florida next weekend. We're going to race minivans." I was just like, "Okay, sure."
It's awesome. Well, I hope you get to stop by the hot seat again because this was a lot of fun. And I just, it's nice to meet somebody refreshing who doesn't want to be one track minded and is multidimensional as you, Gray. So it was such an honor to talk to you for the hot seat here on TPF Live.
Thank you. I appreciate it.